Hey guys, welcome to Conversations Left Behind. Today we are talking about a super relevant topic. It really destroys relationships, and it's common to everybody. Everybody experiences it, and it's a big problem. But we're talking about gossip, or essentially talking behind people's back. Same thing, right?
Yeah.
And how destructive it can be. I remember you had a specific instance that was pretty destructive.
Yeah.
In your family.
In my family, yes.
That you went through. That was basically because of people talking behind your back.
Yeah, and I had no idea. That's the part. Obviously, you don't know people are talking behind your back until it comes out at some point. But apparently, it was someone in my family, and I find out it had been going on for years, I guess. Just blaming me for things and talking about me in bad ways. And someone else in my family, apparently you're the one who told me about this, stuck up for me and said, that's ridiculous. Why do you keep thinking this stuff about her? And it was stuff that happened when I was a kid, and I had no control over. And so it was just devastating me in a way, because I'm like, what? Not knowing for years someone thinks this stuff about you and is talking about you in this way, but then to your face they act like, everything's fine and whatever. I had no idea that they had these feelings deep down about me, And
it's one thing if it's a friend or a stranger,
right.
But it
was family.
In your family, and oftentimes it does happen within families. We've experienced that as well.
Yeah.
And had some challenges with that in our own family that we've dealt with. But how does it make you feel when it's someone you thought you were close to?
That's what I was saying. It was devastating, because I was just like, what in the world? I was very hurt, very hurt by it.
Yeah.
Because I just thought and I remember being kind of, I guess, shocked too, because I just was I had no idea.
Yeah.
That they felt that way, and that they'd been saying things about me like that from when I was a teenager,
Yeah.
Come on.
It's funny because, somebody builds a narrative in their head of something.
Yeah.
And they never ever go to the person, or they never address it or have a conversation. So then it just builds and becomes more and more and more. And this happens kind of everywhere. It can happen it's happened between us.
Oh, yeah.
Where it's something between us, or outside of the family, or with friends, or it's just relationships.
Yeah, just in general.
Where this happens, And it's funny because I remember us dealing with it within our family. And it can be really destructive.
Very destructive.
Yeah, and once you've seen it, move a little bit within your family circle, you realize, hey, this needs to stop. And we came to a point where we decided this needs to stop, and I said, hey, we need to have a family meeting.
Yep. And
we got everybody together, and we basically had to address it and call the skeleton out of the room with everybody and make it very clear, because if you don't, the stories grow. Yeah,
and it just it gets worse, and that's the problem. And I remember how I dealt with that. It was just ended up pretty much cutting that relationship off, because I didn't know how else to. What else was I going to do? And someone who should have been on my side and stuck up for me didn't either. So that was kind of a hurtful thing as well. Someone very close to me. So it was just a bad thing all the way around. But
so, how do you deal with people like that?
In my sense, depending on what it was, I just felt like I severed the relationship, because, I just couldn't. I felt so hurt and upset by it, and that's what I did. I don't know if that's always the right reason, right thing to do. I don't think it probably is.
Clearly, there are different levels of response that come with somebody who gossips all the time.
Yeah.
And look, I'll be honest, it's easy to fall into that trap of talking about people, and you have to kind of recheck yourself and say, hey, am I talking about something? So we were trying to define, is talking about somebody just in general conversation, like in your family, or, hey, so-and-so was doing this or whatever. That to me is not gossip.
Right.
It's when you're talking negatively about somebody, saying something that is either against them, but definitely is not for them, or building them, or positive towards them.
Yeah.
then becomes gossip. And it's hard when you get into that habit, if you do that frequently, to even see it, because it just becomes part of your normal conversation. So I think it's super important to identify it first of all. So we identified it, and then we made a point, because these are our loved ones, and it can't be something that you just left alone, or it's going to be destructive. You know, how long it takes before the relationships are severed within your family. I've watched outside of between my dad's side of the family and my mom's side of the family, there were all kinds of relationships that were just cut off, and it was all for those reasons. They were all just kind of snide and coming at each other, and it was it's just crazy. And next thing you know, they're all disconnected. There's no more of them, connected at this point. And so I had the awakening. Look, that can't happen to my family. And as the dad, and the older person, you feel like, you got a better handle on life and stuff than maybe what the kids do. But at some point you have to recognize and hear their voice. And that's kind of what it was. So in that instance, we came together, had a whole meeting, and we made sure it was all out on the table together instead of, any private conversations, because when you're in a fragile state, it's always a good idea to communicate with others, not just you and that one person. If the relationship is challenged, because then it's always okay. Who's taking part of that conversation now outside to the next person, to the next person, to the next person. And it's their side of the story instead of the real context. Well, when you need to call in a third party, that helps solidify, it keeps people in check, number one, and it also helps add another set of ears to say, whoa, wait, I didn't hear it that way. And it just makes things easier to go through the conversation and heal the relationship, I believe. Now, first step, always, you need to at least go to the person. In your case, wasn't an option because that was too far gone.
It was too far gone. And that's what I feel like too. I don't know how to explain it. I think there's a line. I think it depends on what, like in the situation with our family, it was easier to have everybody together, sit down and discuss what was going on and what was happening. When certain things are said about you, or I feel like there's a line. Like there's a line that it gets to like that was too much. You shouldn't. It was over. Like it wasn't called for. There was no reason for you to talk about me and feel those things. So that's why I just kind of severed that. I don't think you should always sever the relationships, but I feel like when certain things are said, it just has to be. There's a difference than coming together and talking. Maybe someday. But in my situation, it just was too far gone, like you said.
Okay, so it's easy to say, hey, some you just need to cut ties. There's a point where you have to make a decision, and you say, look, you are toxic in my life. This just keeps happening, and we've addressed it, or maybe not. Maybe it's just somewhere where you're like, you know what, I don't care anymore. I have people like that too, where I'm just like, you know what, I don't give a rip.
So what do you do I guess, does it depend? Obviously with our family, you talked about that, but if it was a situation with a friend or whatever, would it depend on what they said about you, or would you try to have a conversation with them first type of thing if you found out someone was saying things?
It would definitely depend. So my family is my number one. It should be everyone's number one first. So absolutely. That's why I put together that whole family meeting. Let's talk, because we need to heal this and find a new path forward so this kind of thing stops. We did that. I'm super proud of the girls and their husbands and everything, because now, they were part of it, and we set a new understanding. So we head this off, at the past, so it couldn't grow and become more than what it was, so we could heal and get past it and move on. That's because they're my kids. I love them, and I don't want to see something happen in the future to where we're not connected anymore, even at the expense of maybe, I know that I'm right, or I know that I'm right. It's not always something that's going to help you win the, the war. Win the battle overall. So I don't want to be that person. There are things now. We just had another conversation where, me and a couple of the girls were basically, they shared their opinion, I shared mine, and I said, look, I'm in complete disagreement with the two of you. I don't agree at all. However, if you feel that way, then I'll concede and we'll do this together as a team. And so I wanted them to know that I support them. And I hear them and understand the way they feel. Much easier with my kids. A lot of people, even in my family, I've seen them just disconnect the kids. See ya. You crossed me, whatever. I can't do that. I love my children, and life is hard, and with adult children, there are always things you have to work through, and they just keep coming sometimes. So, and they're just different. Each decade that goes by with whatever life phase they're in. But with friends, it depends on how long and old the friendship is and what the severity of what the gossip was. But the point is this, man, if someone's talking behind your back and they're your friend, why would they be doing that first off?
If they were your true friend.
Maybe you're just not near as good of a friend or friends as you thought they were. There was something Jeff Henderson said, I can't remember what it was. Gosh, when he spoke the other day at church, and he was talking about, he said, the greatest thing you can do is stop caring about the people, about what people think who aren't in your circle. I don't know. I think I just butchered that. Essentially what he was saying is, hey, you're going to find out who your real friends are. And that oftentimes comes, especially if you've seen more success than them, a lot of times some friends will change and they'll start gossiping about you, or different circumstances that just mar the relationship. And it's really not about you, it's about their unhealthy.
Their insecurity.
And now you're seeing that, and you notice real quick who your real friends are, because your real friends are going to celebrate you when you're winning. They don't care whether it may be beating them at whatever it is you're defining, the competition may be in your mind. But they're there to support you. They're doing life with you, and they love you regardless of the circumstances. They're there to support you. That's what real friends do. And it's super important to find those kind of people. And there's not a lot of them in this world. So, you don't, at least I don't have like buckets full of those types of people. I have a mixed bag. So, if it were somebody who wasn't a real close friend and the severity, I'm pretty good about cutting people loose. I just am. True. I'm like, hey, see ya. Life is too short. It's too short. I don't want to deal with the stress. I don't need more junk in my life. Maybe we just don't need to be doing life together anymore. So, hey, best wishes to you. Let's move on.
Move on.
That's how I feel.
That's good.
What you? Yeah.
Same.
So, at the end of the day, really, I think you have to measure it all out. Is what it comes down to. But regardless, you have to cut it off at the knees. You can't allow gossip or talking behind people's backs in your family, in your friendship at all. Because if you do, it's a short matter of time before it just rots away at you, your relationship, and it just makes you feel yuck.
Not good,
And it just grows. It's just going to grow. So deal with it, confront it, and then decide whether, number one, is that person worth keeping in my life, or do I need to let them go? Do I need to cut them loose so you can be all that you can be, and you can live more in a positive state? Because you can't be happy when you're swimming in that kind of stuff. It's hard to have trust. It's hard to operate in any type of relationship if you don't feel like you can be you and the person loves you enough to be for you.
Support you.
All the time. All the time.
Exactly.
That's it.
That's it.
Hey, I'm Shawn.
And I'm Kori.
And this is Conversations Left Behind. We appreciate you joining us. And hey, by the way, We just surpassed 500 users in literally a few weeks, not users, subscribers,
yes.
yeah, in literally a few weeks.
Yes.
And, you know, as you can see, we don't have a lot of fancy editing. These are raw, unedited conversations. There's an intro and some pretty stuff that, you know, we have some help with, but outside of that, they are just literally raw conversations. So we're super excited that you guys have subscribed and the support that we've received. And if you're new here, then we would love for you to hit that subscribe button, hit the like button, leave a comment.
Yes.
We love the comments because it gives us Q&As, it gives us, you know, some thoughts of others that maybe we hadn't heard before on the conversations we're having, and it just allows you to be a part of the conversation.
Yeah.
So, hey, thanks for doing that. We'll see you next time.